Hello, here we are in gate 43 in the first line, which is called patience. This is the foundation line for the gate of breakthrough and insight. This is what the hexagram is really about, patience. So much in human design comes down to timing. Ra talks about it a lot. He felt it was like the most important thing because it is something that affects everybody, no matter what your design, what your configuration. You could say it's more important for individuality because of their genius, neat, freak nature. It's important for everybody as well. So we know the first line is what demonstrates the nature of the hexagram. Sudden awareness is something that either leads to the demands of depth, to go into it deeply, to know your knowing, or it comes out on the other side where there is no ability to express it. So many knowers cannot express their knowing, partly because they don't have the depths, and partly because they don't trust in the timing, and they're not patient. Gate 43 has a harmonic that is also its polarity. The other end of the channel is also the opposition in the wheel, which means that when the personality sun is in gate 43, the earth is automatically in gate 23, and there is a definition, which is another word for a channel. Statistically, there are more people with this channel 4323 than with the 1156 or the 1762. These are the other two channels between the ajna and the throat. They are the collective channels that run alongside. They sort of bracket the individual 4323 in the middle. And because it's an opposition in the wheel, you find it a lot. Many people will have it either in design Sun Earth or personality Sun Earth, one way around or the other, or as a nodal activation as well. Most of the time, when you get the 43, you are getting the 23 as well. And it's one of the features of these channels that form oppositions. When you get one, you automatically get the other. And there are only three channels like this through the whole of the system. We have the 4323 here, the 3420 is another one, and the 3740 is the third. So often, knowers from the mental, the awareness perspective from the mind, they are automatically connected to their throat. It's a very different experience for idea people or opinion people. 9 times out of 10, the 43 has immediate and consistent access to the throat. And this is not without problems. The dilemma that they have is that they do not have the basic restriction that is there on the 11 and the 17, who do not automatically have the outlet, who have a restriction on their process. Individual knowers don't have that. They have no breaks. Generally speaking, the moment the knower has that, aha, I know, everybody has to hear about it. In the exaltation, the recognition that new forms cannot be established until resistance has been eliminated. The depth necessary to bring into form an individual insight. Is it really a knowing? Do I really know it? This is the examination of knowing. And you have to be focused on that. No interference, not from outside or from inside. In the detriment and impatience to enjoy the sweets of accomplishment that inevitably leave a sour taste in the mouth. A delight in the insight, but a lack of depth to establish it. If knowers don't go through the introspection, which is what this first line is giving us. It's always a gate of introspection. If knowers don't go through that, they get attention with their I know, but they can end up in difficulty, quite a lot of difficulty sometimes. To really know what you know, to know your knowing, you have to go into it. You have to investigate it. The accomplishment that is mentioned throughout these lines and in the gate headline as well, this is the ability to explain yourself. A knower that doesn't really know can be really confusing. You listen to them and you end up saying, I've got no idea what they're talking about. I don't know what they mean. I don't know who the hell they think they are. And because the individual puts out that wave of not really being able to explain itself, it's immediately alienated or ostracized. It becomes the stranger on the outside, and all because they could not explain their knowing. The patience comes from the depth necessary to explain. Generally, when we have read the first gate of insight, we might think of its dictionary description, a spontaneous moment of clarity. If we're just looking at the title of the gate, oh, spontaneous moment of clarity. But the spontaneous moment of clarity is non-translatable. And gate 43 has to be able to explain itself, which means you've got to go deep inside. You have to know what it really is, and that takes time. The grounding coming through gate 23 at the other end of the channel, the first line. I had such trouble with this when we looked at gate 23 in the first line. I've been practicing again. The line name is proselytization. This is the person who says, I know, now you must know. I know and you should know. Or, I know and it's going to be so much better for you when you know. They can be quite relentless with their knowing. This whole channel can be a bit of a verbal gunslinger, really. The 23 particularly is the gate of blurting. So perhaps the patience in the first line of the 43 can support the evangelistic nature of the 23 in the first line, which maybe would make the knowing easier for others to accept. Venus moved into gate 10 at 7:14 this morning, the gate of the behavior of the self in the G center. This is a roll gate. It's a gate that gives us the names of the profile lines. And even if we don't have gate 10 activated in our chart, we still have a profile line. So we can still feel its influence, because every line, not just the specific profile lines, but every line will carry the qualities that we find in the lines of gate 10. This is what happens with the roll gate. So gate 43 in the first line, for example, it's called patience, but it's the foundation of the hexagram. It wants to investigate what knowing is, which it will do through introspection. And the profile name for line 1 is the investigator. So this gives you the flavor of what comes through from gate 10. So Venus being there, Venus is all about our values. This is huge value, because this gives us a really interesting and immediate way of finding what somebody is about on some level. Not in a kind of, let's put them in a box because they're a hermit or whatever. It just gives us a way of tuning into them, of offering something to them, of communicating with them on a way that they will understand from within, even if mentally they don't quite get it. Mars moves into gate 31, 11:35. This is the throat gate of leading. It's a logical collective gate. It's a projector gate, which tells us that leaders should be invited to the role. As a throat gate, it has a voice. You might guess this one. The voice says, I lead. It's a very influential gate. It wants to be seen. It wants to be something. As Mars moves through the gate, it will begin as an immature expression, perhaps becoming bitter as it meets resistance to its leading, to its influence, before finding the wisdom in the later lines of this hexagram. We know we have the channel with the Sun Earth all week. We'll be exploring that as we go through the lines. So let's take a look at the moon. The moon has been in gate 55 since 4:12 this morning. This is GMT, the solar plexus gate of abundance and spirit. This is an individual gate that can feel melancholy. That's one of the keynotes for individuality. It can feel hope and despair as the wave moves between having a cup that's half full and a cup that's half empty. Staying in the solar plexus, the moon moves into gate 37 at 13:51. This is the tribal gate of the family and friendship. It's the gate of the bargain and the handshake. Touch is really important to this tribal stream that runs up from gate 19 in the root. You can tell a lot about someone from their handshake. It's much more difficult to strike a good bargain over the internet when you can't reach out and shake someone's hand. Gate 63 is next at 2324. This is it's not in the head center. Is it? Yes, it is in the head center. This is the head center gate of doubt. It is logical, collective. It's always asking why. And in order for a theory to be taken as fact, all angles of it must be explored. Asking why and doubting the theory is the beginning of this whole process. The why is answered in gate 4 at the other end of the channel. It's then taken into the rest of the circuit for verification before being presented to the collective as something useful. And finally, tomorrow morning at 8:51, the moon moves into gate 22, the solar plexus gate of grace and openness. This is individuality, and so we know that timing is going to play a key role here. When the correct timing is there to be social, to be open and graceful, then this is somewhere that the 22 can then shine. There's only one social channel in individuality, and it is this 22 to 12, the solar plexus to the throat. And it's not open all the time because we're in a binary, so what is open can also be closed. What behaves gracefully can also behave disgracefully. And the 22 doesn't want to really call attention to itself, generally speaking. I mean, we live in a binary, so there are always those expressions that do want to draw attention, but mostly we have that nature that runs through all individuality that it doesn't want too much attention because it doesn't want to be the freak, the outsider, for the most part. Okay, line 1, we're off and running with gate 43. I will see you tomorrow for the second line and look forward to that. And until then, as always, go gently.